Welcome to Success Story. I'm your host, Scott Clary. The Success Story podcast is part of the HubSpot podcast network. Quick shout out to HubSpot before we get started. HubSpot has an incredible tool called Sales Hub. If you haven't checked it out now, you got to. Why? Well, you know what time it is. It is sweater weather, football season, Q4. This is the home stretch for your business. It is time to close out another year of growth, another year of business building strong, and to prep for the next year of more revenue, more customers, more deals. To bring in more business this Q4 and beyond, you need sales software that helps you score, and top tools are all inside the new HubSpot Sales Hub. With a customizable prospecting workspace, smart deal management, and AI-powered apps, you can take total control of your sales operation and manage your people and your pipeline with ease. They've built it and designed it all into an accelerated workflow baked right into your HubSpot CRM. And when you pair Sales Hub with other hubs like HubSpot's Smart CRM, your team will be on the same page across the entire customer journey. Leads don't slip through the cracks. Stop sticking to the same old strategies and start closing more deals, because the best time to score is Q4. Make the switch to HubSpot Sales Hub at hubspot.com/sales.
So if you talk to my dad, who founded the company back in 1976, at the time, Johnson was one of the most popular surnames in the world. So it was familiar. And then Doc, the concept around Doc was sex toys. This industry started as marital aids, and that's kind of what they were referred to. So almost like medical aids in a way. People kind of thought like there was which is funny now today, there's a health and wellness aspect to it. Mm-hmm. And back then, I think this whole industry was trying to gain legitimacy. So Doc was doctor, but more friendly. It's like if you grew up in a small town and you had sort of like your local doc, and it was like Doc, friendly, and you kind of feel comfortable with it. Johnson, you're familiar because it's an extremely popular surname around the world. And you put those two together and it's Doc Johnson. I mean, I always kind of mess with him that he had to have known Johnson also meant dick.
Yeah, I was going to say.
and that's one of the things we're really known for. But he holds pretty steadfast that this was really just about taking something that was extremely taboo at the time, that people were uncomfortable with, and making it comfortable and something that they felt familiar with.
And I sort of looked into his background, and he came from, I guess, the rubber industry, and then he pivoted. And maybe even explain like that pivot, because this is, now I would say that this is more of a culturally accepted kind of business, obviously, but I don't know where we were at in the 70s. I'm sure it wasn't as much the norm as it is right now. So what was the mindset of somebody pivoting to this kind of industry? What's the industry called? Is it like, I say sex toys, what is it? What's the actual vernacular?
Yeah, I think the very well-known term would be sex toys.
Okay.
If someone asks me what I do and I want to just be very forthright, I'm going to say I make sex toys. In 2023, what's my normal answer? I work in the sexual health and wellness industry. I think that really, truly, I believe in my heart that that's what we are. I believe that is where we sort of like better people's lives, and why our product's super important. Mm-hmm. I've been around from the sex toy days. Well, I guess I should say adult novelties, sex toys, into pleasure products. I still believe pleasure products is a better name than sex toys, but overall, like the overarching theme to me is sexual health and wellness.
So when he first started, when your dad started this company, is what I mean. Like, why did he go down this path? This is like a very interesting business to start.
Yeah. So I'll give you sort of the the 5-minute special on that. Basically, what a lot of people don't know is in America, the adult market was sort of centered in Cleveland, Ohio. Okay. One of the original sort of like founders and main players in this industry was from Cleveland, Ohio. And a lot of distribution and different categories in our industry in the way beginning kind of started there, almost like this like central hub in the Midwest, and kind of pushed out from there. Mostly to the East Coast, of course, but definitely out onto the West Coast a little bit as well. The West Coast was a little bit later, starting more of like the content side of things and the filming side of things. But at that time, it was magazines, it was movies, VHS, very, very, very little like novelties, but it still did have some novelties. My dad is from Cleveland, Ohio. Was at the right place at the right time, met some people in the industry, got connected, started working, and his main job was sales. He was basically running magazines up and down the East Coast, making relationship with store owners, making relationships with different people, selling magazines, and that sort of grew into more things. As he kind of progressed within the organization, he ended up moving to London and to Amsterdam, and he had retail stores in both locations. And when he was in Europe, he saw that novelties, the sex toys, was a much bigger category in the retail locations than it was in the US. In the US, it was a real afterthought. It was like shrink wrapped in a bargain bin in the back, because the real moneymaker in the stores in those days were the peep booths and the tapes and the magazines. And he felt that taking some of what he learned from Europe, he felt that novelties could play a much bigger role in America, and he felt like the use and the discussion and the acceptability around product was going to become greater in the US. So he moved to Los Angeles. He purchased a small manufacturer here in North Hollywood. It's actually still the site that we're on right now. Like, I'm coming to you live from North Hollywood. And they were a company that made a bunch of different products in the rubber market, including some very, very, very limited like adult products. He purchased that company, and in doing so, what he really purchased was the machinery, the connections to the material. And then what he decided was, I want to be 100% adult novelties. So he started making butt plugs and dildos and dongs and all that other sort of stuff.
All the stuff you saw in Europe. All the stuff you saw in Europe that was already in that market. It was doing well. Okay, gotcha.
Exactly. And I mean, basically the rest is sort of like history, as they say, because there was a massive demand and there was no supply. So the company grew, it exploded very, very, very quickly. Like, he was in a small footprint making a few products, and really within a year we were in a 75,000 square foot facility, dozens of machines, making a catalog that was already 250 products deep.
So he just this is really interesting. You see these opportunities overseas. I think it actually happens the opposite way too now. You see a lot of people take ideas that happen in the US or that are culturally relevant in the US, and they take them overseas and they sort of copy them in Europe. But for your dad, it was the exact opposite. So we saw this cultural shift. Yeah.
Well, it was opposite really, because if you just look at like America versus Europe, even still today, Europe is just more, they're more open, they're more free. This is not taboo. We're not taboo right now anymore at all. We probably haven't been for quite some time, but there are still massive circles in this country that, this is not something that you would be very clear on telling someone what you did, or might not be accepted at a certain club or whatnot all over this country. In Europe, I mean, sex toys are sold, everywhere. And that's happening today too. I mean, you can find sex toys at any food, drug, mass location in this country too, but they've been being sold in pharmacies in Europe for 20 years.
Okay, so we are behind. There's probably I don't know the culture of Europe compared to the US, but there's religion is not kosher with a lot of the sex toys, and a more regressive culture overall. So I guess that makes sense. But this is still 70s. I didn't realize that this would be taboo in the 70s. It seems like 70s was not so regressed.
Free love.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was. I mean, listen, again, the demand was there. So this is always about not who's buying it, or if there is a buyer. It's more about who's talking about it, who's openly accepting it. Not to mention there's a lot of other issues that we even still have to this day, just business wise. When you run a business in the adult industry, you do not have the same capabilities and options available to you that someone in a more traditional business has on day one.
Yeah. Well, I'm just thinking of...
So I can have a successful 47-year-old company and not be able to get insurance through a major carrier that someone who literally has no experience or no historical sales could get on day one of opening their company.
That's actually wild. I was thinking of like the cannabis example where it's impossible to run ads because nobody wants to,
same.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, we can't run ads. We get shadow banned on Instagram all the time. We can't post 90% of our product on Instagram. We really can't do anything on TikTok. We can't run advertisements in mainstream magazines or mainstream websites. So, I mean, all that is true too. So when we say that it's not taboo anymore, it's all over, entertainment. Everyone's talking about it. No one's really embarrassed anymore. You could go to dinner with 10 women tonight and ask them if they own a sex toy, and they're not going to be like, oh my God, like, I can't believe you. Like, they'd be like, yeah, I own 10. But I don't think people do know that even today in 2023, the type of issues that myself and my counterparts deal with just by being in the adult industry.
So let's talk about that, because really, this is interesting to me. So let's talk about first how you said your dad built the company because there was this cultural shift. There was, more demand than supply. But then you have other competitors come into the market. Give me like an idea of where the company was when you started working and you started taking over and you started running with it.
That's a good question. I mean, on one hand, extremely solidified, one of the major players in the industry. Definitely at that point, probably I would say we, definitely had lost some major ground to a lot of competitors. There were just a lot of people in the industry from when my dad first started to when I started, which next year will be 20 years for me. And I know when I came in, definitely... It wasn't the only reason I came here. I came here for lots of reasons, but one of the main reasons I came here was because I definitely saw like an opportunity with the company itself and as well as the industry at large. Like, I really felt like this was a 1 generation old industry. I wasn't kind of stepping into this like machine that just kind of needed to be oiled a little bit. It's like I really needed to be like a player in the company. I needed to take the company in different directions if we were going to continue to be here for like another 40 years. So I feel like the brand name has always been really strong. Our relationship with our customers and our sort of like foothold in the industry when I came in, like I said, was really solidified. But there was a lot of people doing different stuff. And I felt like maybe Doc was maybe resting on its laurels a little bit back in 2004 when I first came in.
And, that's usually a side effect of being one of the first movers, right? And then what you don't want to have happen is you don't want to be the blockbuster. You don't want to be the people that created the market and then you get displaced and disrupted. So I'm
Well, success breeds complacency too
Always.
sometimes. Like,
Yeah.
very simple. Like, if it's always worked and you've always made money from it, it's hard to pivot. And this company was run by one person and definitely a team always, but you don't want to be the one that's like, okay, we're not going to do this anymore because this isn't the future, when this has been so successful for us for the last 30 years.
Well, that's what's wild. I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong, but this was you never raised for this company. You like, I know I think, I don't know, you want to talk numbers or whatever. If you want to, I know there's public numbers that I can Google, but the revenue on zero raise is actually like super, super impressive with 100% equity ownership.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, this industry has been successful. It's been self-sufficient, and really we're not unique. I mean, you look at my industry and all the numbers that you can Google pretty much are estimates, because almost every company in this industry is privately held.
So, okay. So when you take this over,
there's very few raises and there's very few public entities in this industry. Very few on any level of the industry. I mean, from retail stores to distributors and wholesalers to manufacturers. I would go out on a limb and say 95% of this industry is 100% owned by an individual or individuals.
Why is that?
Privately.
Do you have
held.
an idea of why that is? Like, why doesn't private equity come in, scoop something up?
Well, sure. For let's say the industry's 50 years old, right? Like, let's just put that number on it, give or take it is. For 40 of those years, no one would give you $1. Mm-hmm. No one would give adult people money because they didn't see the benefit in it and they didn't see the exit strategy in it. And they weren't wrong. I mean, outside of the fact that the industry was successful and most companies were making money and were profiting, a lot of the private equity money and the investors and the strategic investors, they're coming in for an exit plan. Mm-hmm. And there's really not a lot of exit plans in my industry unless you're going to sell to a bigger company than yours or to a new set of investors or private equity. You're not going to sell to Procter & Gamble.
Yeah. No, you're right. Yeah.
You're not going to go on Shark Tank.
Yeah.
So there was a reason that actually did make sense, but it was almost a nice benefit that we lacked that option, because a lot of people in this industry were able to hold on to their companies 100% and become successful, and these companies were profitable.
So that's super impressive, but then I'm trying to think of, even before, again, when we jumped on, we we're talking about brand equity, and you own this company free and clear. You've never raised money, but it doesn't have the same brand equity that a household name that's selling products at a similar revenue level would normally have. And I'm curious as to why that is. I'm curious as to whether or not it's just because the industry is new, probably a part of it. And how do you solve for that? And also, just sort of thinking deeper, why it's so important to solve for that is because when you have a widget like this, that I mean, the majority of your workforce is in the US. If you have a widget like this, some competitor could come along, and if you don't have that brand equity, I know you've spoken about this a few other times before in some of the articles I've read, these copycat products, these outsourced to China products could come along and displace. So first of all, why do you think there's not as much brand equity in some of the players in this industry? How do you solve for it? Obviously, we're doing it right now, but outside of this interview, how do you solve for it? And then how do you fight back against these copycat products?
So both very good questions and both hard answers. With the copycat product, I'll take on the easier one maybe, which is the copycat products. Like, definitely very difficult. And it's been increasingly difficult even in the last 20 years that I've been here, because a lot of the numbers that do get published about this industry, whether they're estimates or not, they're pretty eye-opening. And so I think a lot of people look to get into this industry. They find a little niche that they can attack, and they eat away at shelf space, and if enough people come in attacking little niches all the time, for a company like mine that's kind of like a one-stop shop, like I make product in every category in this industry. If you can think of it, like, I guarantee you I probably make it. Whereas a lot of my competitors, they don't. They only make like 10 or 15 vibrators that are like for women, you know, or this company over here only makes BDSM product. And that's all they focus on all day long. Or this company over here only makes lubricant, or they only make cock rings. There's a lot of companies that's what they've decided to do. And they get to come into work every day and focus on one thing and one thing only and try to be the best at that. And I come into work and my team comes into work and we're kind of like, okay, well, we're making lubricant and we're making cock rings and we're making BDSM products and we're making vibrators, and we've got to compete with all of these other companies out there that, like, that's what they're doing all day, every day, and trying to sell our same customers that they make a better product than us because that's what they focus on. So for us, it's like a combination of, yes, the brand equity that we do have within the industry, which is very high. And that's different than the brand equity we have outside of the industry, which I will admit is very low. And that's kind of the second part of your question that I'll get to. But within the industry, our brand equity is very high. And we have great relationships with our customers. We have expertise on all different levels of R&D and product manufacturing. And we are known within the industry to make a very good product. So for us, it's a combination of our relationships. It's a combination of our size and our ability to get our sales force out there in front of our customers, store trainings, retail trainings, distributor trainings, etc. That we're able to kind of, bully ball, I guess, in a way, like our ability to kind of say, like, here's why you should be taking like our product in this category versus this product. Or here's why our product's a good add to this category with these other products that you already keep. So, it's continuing to stay on top of like what we do and how we do it and try to do it better, try to be unique, whether that's packaging or the way that we market a product. Like, I will take our team 10 out of 10 times against copycat items out there. The copycat items a lot of times are really going after one thing and one thing only, and that's price point. Yeah. And so, sometimes it's a hard battle. I'm not going to lie. Like there's shelves that we have lost that I don't know if we're going to get back.
Because you have, I think it's I was going to say 75% of your products made in the US. So there's going to be somebody who's able to make it cheaper.
100%.
Yeah.
Now, we can go into that, but that number's not 100% true anymore because we've moved the majority of our manufacturing. We actually opened a facility 6 years ago down in Mexicali.
Okay.
So we own a manufacturing facility down in Mexicali, and we're actually producing the majority of our product down in Mexico right now. Part of that was expansion that we didn't have the ability to do here. And then when COVID hit, there were things that we couldn't do here due to closures and other restrictions that we were able to do down in Mexicali. That took what was originally an expansion and kind of made it a transition. And that transition has kind of started to roll, unfortunately, just due to the fact that making product or anything for that matter in Los Angeles, California, it's kind of like the hardest place on earth that you can try to make a product at a price competitive rate. And at a certain time, you just got to look up and be like, okay, my product has a ceiling. Here's what I'm competing with. And if I'm way here, I don't think I have the brand equity with or without within or outside of the industry to compete any longer. And so then that becomes a question of, do I just put my head down and keep making American-made product just for the sake of American-made product? Or do I start to transition that to a location where I can make product at a better price?
So I'm curious as to your experience when you're going into all these retailers, because you obviously see a cultural shift. People are more accepting of this. So now you're not just putting lube at a CVS, or you're not just selling direct to consumer, and you're not just selling in these super niche adult stores. I guess some of your products are like on Walmart shelves at this point. And when you have a conversation with that buyer, you're already, well, I don't know, are you already facing stigmas because of the industry that you have to overcome, compounded with all these outsourced? Is it made in US? Is it made in China? Do they ask you these questions? Is it like a harder conversation from the get-go?
No, not at all. I mean, so within my industry, no, there's no stigma, of course, because we're all kind of one and the same. Outside of the industry, there's not. It's weird right now. We're in a very interesting place. Everybody wants these products, and every one of these sort of like, let's call them food, drug, mass companies have a head buyer in charge of my category. They will tell you this is the fastest growing segment on their shelves. They want this product. They want more of this product. But sort of like the powers that be, they want a controlled expansion.
Okay.
They don't want to bring in as much as maybe they know they should, because I don't think they want to have like a massive shelf of adult products on their store.
Interesting. Is there a certain...
Because I think they feel like there's going to be a bigger pushback to that.
If you saw just like a row of dildos at Walmart and you've heard like...
Well, like I think it's like, I don't know if I'm using this term the right way, but like in the zeitgeist of like conversations, I don't think that's what they want to be associated with. It's like they know it's a moneymaker. They know it's their fastest growing category. So it's kind of like, I almost feel sometimes it's almost like hush hush, like, yeah, keep buying more of it, but like don't buy too much, you know? And then like the shelf grows and grows and grows and grows. And like, could they at this point probably have a shelf this big? Like, yes, but they keep the shelf this big and they keep it behind plastic.
Do you even like almost downplay the cosmetic packaging so that it's not as, I don't know, like in your face? Is that something that they would request?
I think we think about that with everything we do now. You know, it's like we're, you know, again, going back to the idea that we make a lot of product for a lot of categories. On one hand, it's great. On the other hand, it's a fucking nightmare. You know, because you do have to focus on a lot of different things at once. And sometimes I hate to say, you know, are you sort of like a jack of all trades, master of none? Mm-hmm. You know, and that's a conflict that I deal with personally. Like there are times where I'm like, I maybe we do too much. Maybe this isn't the right way anymore. Maybe this has been the successful, you know, plan, but isn't the right plan for the future. But on the good side, we do get to kind of like Doc Johnson as an entity is not marketed towards one person. We take our brands and market those towards the market that we're going after with that specific brand.
Okay.
So that's where we get to play with our packaging. Some of our packaging is super upscale and discreet, and you know, you could find it on any shelf and feel like it's in company of other products of that look and feel. And then we have stuff that's way more in your face and way more aggressive, because guess what? That's what kind of product it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I mean, I make big dildos.
Yeah, no, I know. So I'm just wondering. I'm thinking of a Walmart shelf.
Masturbators and but they don't buy that stuff. Yeah. They don't buy that stuff.
What do they buy?
And we know that. We know vibrators, lots of personal care and cosmetics, lubricants, and ancillary items like that. They're expanding though. I mean, they do buy some like nondescript male masturbatory sleeves now.
Okay. What is a nondescript male masturbatory sleeve? Is like a...
So like for us, one of the things that Doc Johnson invented, and it's still one of our biggest items, is we invented the concept of molding a performer's genitalia.
Okay. So I know what you're talking. Okay, so I think I know what you're talking about. I understand now. I've never heard it described that way.
I know what I'm talking about.
Never heard it in such eloquent terms. That's why.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what's fair and not fair on this podcast.
Everything's fair on this podcast, bro. Like what?
I don't want to say we mold pussies and dicks.
I was gonna say it's like I think you call it like a pocket pussy. something like that. I don't think you.
Yeah, so that's our name.
Yeah.
But our bigger brand for that now is a brand called Main Squeeze.
Okay.
And that is a brand that's just centered around female genitalia, you know, and the success of the performer.
Yeah.
That product is based on. We do the same thing on the male side. We have a line called Signature Cocks.
Yeah. And then it's also
Okay?
it's
And
modeled
it's
after.
all
Yeah.
male.
Okay.
They don't buy that. They're not going to buy anything that looks like a mouth or a butthole or a vagina. But we'll also make items that are literally just, you know, very, very like the same material. So super like soft, textured sleeves that a man can use as a masturbatory aid. And it just has a hole. It's completely nondescript. It doesn't look like anything. It's just a rubber, for lack of a better word, soft sleeve that a man can use, you know, instead of using his hand.
When you do these models, do you get like, is it like an influencer exclusive agreement that you work with one performer and that performer cannot lend their genitalia to any other company? Is it that kind of agreement? Or can you have somebody else that makes the same thing? Because that's your IP then.
No. For us, it's exclusive or no deal.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense for us, you know, because, you know, for us, again, that is one of the areas where we can eliminate copycats. We can't eliminate the category, but we can eliminate, you know, the actual IP around the performer. So we work with some of the biggest performers in the industry, you know, on all sides, right? And we want to make sure that particular performer and hopefully the growth of that particular performer's success relates back to Doc Johnson and not like, oh, you can go get this person's product at 5 other companies.
Yeah. So like, are you like I'm using all these non-industry analogies, but are you like drafting these people on the come up, basically? You're looking.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great way of saying it. So I would say we have probably 2 methods, right? One is already very successful, haven't done a product like this before, go out, work in, you know, try to just get that deal done. And then the other way is exactly how you described it, like basically drafting. Yep. Looking at a different criteria that we sort of put together. Also connections that we have with other performers, agents, managers to kind of know, hey, this girl or this guy is playing the game.
Yeah. Like
they're in it. They're in it to win it. They know what they're going to do, and they know they're going to do it the right way. And I'll be honest, I've had interest, or my team here, we've had interest in performers before, and we've been told no.
Interesting.
Like probably not gonna happen for this one.
How name numbers or not, but I'm just curious to frame it again. Like everyone listening to this knows influencer marketing. Probably 0.001% of people know the type of work that you do, and as well as you do it. So what's a deal like this? When you do a deal and I'm also curious how the hell you do that, how you mold it and whatever. But when you do one of these deals, what is it? It's like a 6-figure deal, 7-figure. It depends on the performer. Like, are these big numbers we're talking about? Like life-changing numbers?
No,
okay.
No. And we're very honest with that, with everyone up front about that. Okay. This is ancillary to your day-to-day. Okay. You know, and right now that day-to-day, you know, between OnlyFans and other content, these particular performers have the ability to be extremely, like, life-changingly successful right now.
Yeah, you see it.
This is not
some of them making millions per month. It's wild.
This is not the adult content industry of 10 years ago. Like, post-COVID, you're talking about people making tens of millions of dollars a year from their content. Yeah. And so what we're offering is an ancillary item that you can provide to your fans and to all of your viewers, that we're going to go out and market. We're going to go out and sell to all of our customers. And it's like, it's like something great to have. And yes, it's going to bring you money. But this is not, this is not sort of the retirement.
Yeah, I gotcha. Okay. And just because I need to understand, I guess molding a dick seems like it makes sense. How do you mold a butthole or a vagina? Is there like health risks by putting, I don't know, whatever this type of
so the material that we use is actually like incredibly body safe. It's an alginate, which is basically like a seaweed derivative.
Okay.
And you can watch it online. Like you can go to our YouTube channel. We have moldings on there.
Okay.
Just to kind of get a general concept of what we do. But like for better or worse, it's like, think of this alginate. We mix it with warm water. It kind of turns into like I would call it, the best description is like a liquidy silly putty. Mm-hmm. Okay. A girl will lie down on a table in a few different positions, mainly missionary, mainly doggy. Okay. And then we just kind of like smear this sort of like liquid silly putty-ish looking material onto the body. Mm-hmm. It cures very quickly, creating like a very thin, basically like outer skin. This does not go inside the vagina or the butt or the mouth. This is exterior moldings only. Okay. And then once that alginate has cured, we put like a bandage, almost like paper mache. It's like the bandage cures to the alginate and allows it to have a hard removable structure, like a shell. And then what we do is we just sort of, the bond between the alginate and the plaster is stronger than the bond between the alginate and the human skin. So we just kind of peel that off and we're just left with this negative impression of the person's body part.
I'm just going to take a quick break. Thank the longtime friend and sponsor of the show, the HubSpot Podcast Network. They have incredible podcasts. One of my favorites, one you have to check out this month, is Nudge, hosted by Phil Agnew. Now, if you've ever noticed, the smallest changes always seem to have the biggest impact. On Nudge, you learn simple, evidence-backed tips to help you kick bad habits, get a raise, grow a business. The point is, every bite-sized 20-minute show comes packed with practical advice from these incredible entrepreneurs, behavioral scientists, and everybody in between. Nudge is fast-paced, but very insightful and a must-listen if you're a podcast fan. Make sure you listen to Nudge wherever you love to get your podcasts. Because I would think that out of all the things, I think you have, 2,500 plus unique items, like just a wild amount of different things on your site. And I was looking through your site and I would assume that this particular type of product is probably I'm very curious about what's popular and what's not, but this seems like it would be a very popular product because I assume that even with OnlyFans, what seems to make OnlyFans so popular is the ability for like the fan or, the person to feel as close to the individual that they're watching on the screen as possible, or in whatever capacity. And this seems like to have something personalized. It seems like that's as close as you're probably ever going to get. Right. So this is much more personal.
Our thing. Yeah. You hit the nail on the head. Like our thing is just like, we are one step closer in the fantasy.
Yeah. Okay.
This is their identical replication of their private parts. And you can now buy this. You can put the content on your computer or on your TV, and you can use it. And yes, generally speaking, 99.9% of the human population, this is as close as you are ever going to get to actually having sex with that performer that you are a fan of.
Are these some of the highest best selling out of all the stuff you do?
Yeah, this is one of our biggest, it's one of our biggest categories. Main Squeeze is one of our biggest brands. On the male side, Signature Cox is also one of our biggest brands. I think it is, again, it's something that we've been doing for a long time. It's something we actually truly invented the process of doing it. There's other companies that also do it now. But for us, it's still one of our biggest brands, and it's one of our biggest categories. If I group like performer replications into one category, it's probably our biggest category of product that we make.
And explain something else to me, because like I know what this device would look like, and I know that there's one major competitor that I can name off the top of my head, and I won't drop them on the podcast with you, but I know that the structure of this for a guy, like the pocket pussy for a guy, it's all very similar. So is there no IP or copyright infringement on the actual structure of not of the performer, but like the case? Like that thing seems to be something you could put a patent on, for example, but I don't see a patent heavily defended anywhere.
So I want to name who you're talking about, because I know who it is that you're talking about, because they're the Kleenex, and that's important because we talked about brand equity. We didn't fully finish that conversation about brand equity, but like Fleshlight, that's who you're talking about. They have one of the best brand equity names in the industry, and kudos to them. Like genuinely, like they became the Kleenex of male masturbatory items. And I'll admit where we're amazing and where we're not. Like the fact that we invented this process and we're not the Kleenex of male masturbatory items is something that it kills me, right? It genuinely does. The fact that you don't know the name Main Squeeze the way you know the name Fleshlight, like that is something that I lose sleep over it.
I have no doubt.
But again, why are they the Kleenex of these items? Exactly what you just said. They were the first people to say, we're going to put it in a discrete case that has an end cap and a top, that when you close these together, this item no longer looks like a masturbator. And they patented that.
They patented that.
Okay.
Okay.
They patented that. So they had 13 years of fully 100% unrivaled market success with this product. Fleshlight was also a great name. It is. It's a great name. They made it look like a flashlight. And listen, they fucking knocked it out of the park. I mean, they did. There's nothing to say about it. I mean, so the day that their patent was over is the day that we shipped the first Main Squeeze.
Okay.
And,
I got you. That makes sense.
The idea behind the Main Squeeze that we did that I thought was, honestly for me, makes the product, and this is bias, but for me, it makes the product better. Infinitely better, is our product is also in a discrete case, but that case has a squeeze plate built into it. So normally all these other hard case items, you cannot apply pressure to your penis when you're using it. It's just the pressure that's inherently there from the material inside, which to me kind of goes against, I think, how men masturbate.
Well, if you're trying to replicate like a real experience, for sure.
So with our item, and I wish I had one right in front of me, but I don't, but we have a squeeze plate on it. So when you're using it, you can apply pressure via that squeeze plate to your penis as you're stroking. I
got you. So it feels like a real thing. Like, I mean, it's already feeling like a real thing, but it feels more like.
I also think that from our R&D and from my experience as a man and other men here on the team, it's especially relevant when a man is close to orgasm, that they are going to change the pressure that they apply when they are close to orgasm. So here you have the ability to actually do that. So Main Squeeze for us was sort of like a double entendre of like, you can squeeze this product, but also like kind of a girl that you have on, it's like your main squeeze.
It's a good name. How do you, so now you're dealing with this 13-year patent, and you have a product, which, if somebody listens to this, I can guarantee you, because I'm listening to it right now and I'm like, shit, that does sound pretty fucking good. They're going to go out and buy
Go to mymainsqueeze.com.
Yeah, exactly. So how do you win back those 13 years of brand equity lost?
Well, I mean, one of the main ways that you win it back is marketing your item, obviously, trying to get it out there to the masses, have people understand there are ways to market our products, even though we can't do it in all the traditional senses that another mainstream company could, but there are ways to do it. And you're marketing kind of directly to the adult market, which is, I actually think for this product, the better place to market. And the other main way, though, is every single product that we make is unique. So we're competing in the category, but we'll never compete on performer. So if you want a Sasha Grey masturbator, you have to buy a main squeeze.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So our biggest way is just to make sure that we have better performers, and also that those performers that we work with have more vested into it so that they also promote the product, because their reach cumulatively is way greater than Doc Johnson's.
Yeah. Do they bring a fair amount of their audience over? Like when you partner with a performer, do you have like a percentage of that audience that you've probably done the math or you've looked at the data that turns into a Doc Johnson customer?
Yeah, so I mean, the only way we can really do it is through like affiliate links and stuff like that, which they have promotions on mymainsqueeze.com, which is we have Main Squeeze is one of the only products in our entire company that has its own website. Like you can go to docjohnson.com or shop.docjohnson.com and you can buy every product in our catalog as well as Main Squeezes. But if you want sort of the Main Squeeze experience and the place that we do promote that product and we have our performers pushing customers to, is it has its own website, which, like I said, is mymainsqueeze.com. But like that's the only product in our entire company that we do that.
Okay.
Which signifies to me its importance to us as well as its volume. Like we want people to have kind of like a unique experience when they're on that site versus the Doc Johnson mains.
That's so interesting. So I would have thought, I know that would be a popular product, but I'm looking at your site right now and I'm, okay, so you have cock rings, which I think, I don't know what community that serves specifically. I feel like that's not as mainstream for a straight guy to be into cock rings as maybe like I don't know what community that would serve, but I know that like Fleshlight was a popular brand I've heard of before. Obviously that kind of product is super popular for whatever. For straight guys. Dildos, I mean, that serves obviously probably a more women audience. These are just massive assumptions, but the dildo brand, or I guess it's called the D, is that the name of the sub brand? You don't have a website for that. So is that,
no.
Why is that? It's just the Main Squeeze is that popular that...
I think the Main Squeeze is that popular, but it's also because we're working with the performers and we're trying to work directly with we're trying to leverage their success, their followers and everything. We want to push them to a unique experience. I'll be the first to say, like when you go on docjohnson.com, it can be overwhelming. There's a lot of products there. Obviously, if I'm a performer and I'm Chad Braverman and I send you to my link, you're going to go directly to my page. But on my Main Squeeze, you're just going to get a more unique experience based around what we know that specific market segment is looking for. It's better pictures of the girls, it's more information about the girls, more information about the product. Just having our own unique site for that brand allows us to just like do more. I'm not saying that this is not like a copy and paste thing that we might be doing with more brands in the future, but as of right now, it's better for us to push people to a single destination for like the rest of our products that don't necessarily leverage performers, so that you can kind of like, you can see all of our cock rings together.
Yeah.
And you can see all of our dildos together, not just the D, because the D is one of my brands. I also have the Realistic Cock. I also have Signature Signature Cocks,
I love
like
these
I mentioned
names,
before.
Dude. These are awesome names.
Which I want you to see that at the same time, because if you come to Shop Doc Johnson and you're like, I'm looking for a dildo, I want you to see the 250 dildos I have. I don't want you to just see the D, because maybe you might not like something at the D, but you're going to like something at realistic cocks. Or maybe you're going to see that I molded a male performer that you really like. I will tell you, just so you know, dildos primarily women and gay men.
I figure I don't want to make all these assumptions because I don't have the data. I'm just going from my limited experience, and I'm not even that adventurous. But yeah,
women and gay males, cock rings. Yeah, traditionally more, I would say, probably more prevalent in the gay community, just because it's more accepted. Because I think gay men are a little bit more open with like equipment like this. Like there are ways to use cock rings for straight men that feel very, very good. And I will tell straight men all the time, like, you're missing out on an experience if you're not at least trying it. But another big thing about cock rings that you have to understand, where it crosses over to all men in general, is cock rings are very, very big with any man experiencing any ED issues at all.
Okay.
So the main purpose of a cock ring from the old days is you are trapping blood flow into the penis and allowing that penis to get more erect. So if you are having any ED issues, you're going to have something that's a more penetrable with your...
Oh, that's interesting. So it's not just like a pleasure thing. Well, actually, it would be a pleasure thing, but it's also a performance thing too.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's definitely a performance thing.
Okay.
Definitely. Also, ED as well as PE, premature ejaculation.
So that stops it. Interesting.
Yes. So there's a lot of ways to use a cock ring, and the crossover is huge. So it is really not just straight male or gay male or this, that, or the other thing.
Okay, so let's go through the gamut of things that you have on this site. So you have vibrators, dildos, a whole bunch of things that sort of fall under men's toys, including cock rings, prostate stimulators. Like, these are like, I'm so vanilla. Like, I don't even know what a prostate stimulator is. Like the name says what it is, but I don't know how it actually works. You have a whole bunch of bondage stuff, a whole bunch of like anal toys.
Stick it up your butt.
Yeah, I figured it's not that complicated to figure out. But tell me, you see trends. You see trends in what people use, when people are, excited to try. So outside of, we just spoke about the traditional groups or segments that use certain things. What are people trying out? What are people more apt to bring into their relationship, into the bedroom, that maybe 10 years ago were not a thing at all?
Yeah. So, I'll ask you, if you were going to name one thing that you think people talk about more these days and seem to be doing more of on the body, what part of the body do you think is the one that you feel like everyone just doesn't care about anymore? Like, it's like
that people don't care
just
about
normal
anymore
now. Like, it's just normal now. Like, it's not as big of a deal as it was maybe when you were growing up.
Well, I would say that most guys have some sort of pocket pussy or main squeeze kind of device. I would say that most women have a dildo or a vibrator. I think that's normal. I would say that this is, I'm not even that I don't try too much shit, but I've heard people that do like the BDSM, handcuffs, like stuff like that. But that's something that growing up was kind of like out there, right? Like stuff like that.
BDSM when we were growing up was like dungeon. I don't know how old you are, but I think we're
around the same age. It was like weird. It was like weird shit.
So BDSM got big with 50 Shades of Grey.
Okay.
That's when it became mainstream. That's when all these wives and women read about a guy tying them up and whipping them and, doing all this sort of stuff. And it became like, I want that done to me.
Yeah, okay.
So that's relatively new. The thing that I was looking for you to say, that's probably the biggest trend as well in the last X number of years, is just butt stuff.
Really?
I've
always been like, to me, that's like, it grosses me out. That's why.
Okay, but I think that if you look at mainstream, do you not agree that you're hearing more people talk about, like, I don't know, eating ass,
you're
butt
right,
stuff than ever before?
You're right.
To me, it doesn't feel like something that anyone cares about anymore. Like, when I was growing up, if like a girl was like, you can have anal sex with me, it was like, what are you talking about? Like, Now it's like everyone's like, you don't need ass. Like, what are you talking about?
No, you're right.
It's like
I was thinking about like toys specifically. What toys are people using? But yeah.
Well, so the reason I brought it up was because you mentioned like prostate massagers. Yeah. So like prostate massagers are like really why they got so big and why anal got so big. Women have always been kind of using butt plugs and whatnot. Gay men, of course, have always been using butt plugs and prostate massagers, but it's straight men.
And they use this now.
It's straight men that are like playing with their prostate, playing with anal sensation and anal play.
Yeah, see, I obviously don't experiment enough because it's totally new to me. So this is something. Yeah. Who leads the way? Who leads who leads the trends? Is it like you said? Obviously, you have a gay guy that's trying prostate massages and prostate stimulation and whatnot. Women have butt plugs, but who leads that? And when do straight men start trying that stuff out?
There's no one place to like pinpoint and say this is when it happened. It's like we start to notice these trends sometimes from things that are just happening like in the culture. Like I said, 50 Shades of Grey, like every single person, every single company in our industry, we just sold out of any BDSM item that we made.
That's wild.
Whatever we had in stock was just gone overnight. It was just gone overnight. We've carried a product for 47 years. We maybe sold, 200 of them a month, let's say, right? Like just nothing, like just like whatever, maybe even 100 a month. They're called Benoit balls. Do you know what Benoit balls are? I have no idea, dude. So they're like, so they're like weighted, like almost like kind of like marble balls. Yeah. Like most of them are like silver plated or gold plated. Women can put them inside of their vagina and they use their PC muscles to kind of like hold them. But also because they're not, what's the word I'm looking for? They're not sort of like tethered to anything. The way that they kind of move around in the body can kind of create its own sensation. Okay. It can be like very pleasurable. This is an item that like, again, we just carried for years. They sold whatever they sold. It's kind of almost like you just had Benoit balls. I think it was 50 Shades of Grey, the first book or the second book, or I don't know. One of the books, he puts Benoit balls inside of her, and Benoit balls, there was no Benoit balls in the world. They were gone.
So like crazy.
Every company in our industry sold out of Benoit balls. We could not get them in stock. Whatever you had in inventory was the sales that you could get. If you had 100 in inventory, you sold out of 100. You could not get any more. And if you had 1,000, you sold out of 1,000.
So, I think that like society has become more sexualized. I think that that's a pretty fair statement. And I think that that's good and bad. I think that it can hurt relationships, or in a strong relationship, if you bring some of this stuff into the bedroom, it can probably help it. Like you even mentioned before, like the industry that you see yourself in is not like a sex toys industry, but you're in this sexual health and wellness industry. And I'm curious as to what you think about bringing some of this stuff into relationships versus what you hear people say about, oh, we're over sexualized, there's too much access to porn, like so on and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we said something, we've been saying something for years. I don't know if we coined it or if we adopted it from somewhere, but our kind of like company thing has always been the couple that plays together stays together. I think in relationships, it's really, really important to be open about your sexual needs and desires and to be open to receiving your partners back. And finding out if there needs to be middle ground, or if you can make every hope and wish and dream come true, because sex is really important to us, and at the end of the day, it makes us feel really good. And if we're with someone who's willing to sort of explore all those little sexual corners with us, is that the end all be all of your relationship? No, but I can tell you that if you are not with someone who's willing to do that, it is probably eventually going to be the end of the relationship in one way or another. because there are a lot of people who are just extremely sexually dissatisfied with the people that they are with, and that creeps in to the other nooks and crannies of your relationship.
Yeah, I believe that.
And
fully.
when I look at our product, like if I just try to like just whittle it down to like it's a baseline thing, is like, I believe that you are buying my product, whatever product it is, you are buying it to feel good. You are buying it to feel pleasure. If that pleasure is through pain, or if that pleasure is through an experience you haven't experienced before, or if that pleasure is just good old-fashioned fucking pleasure, like, you're buying my product to feel good. A woman is using a vibrator to orgasm with, and do you know how many women can't achieve orgasm through penetration alone?
Like most, isn't that?
So it's like,
isn't that
I tell
a factor that's really hard.
Oh no, it's a fact. It's like, and it's high. It's like in the 60s, you know, if not the low 70s. So I always, like, I've been saying this for years. Like, I've had friends that I grew up with that were like, "Oh, I'm going to bring a vibrator into the bedroom. Like, I should be enough." And it's like, first of all, what are you talking about? We're always different in the bedroom. Like, you're not going to come with the same A game every single time. But like, the point should be that you want your partner to, you know, find the same pleasure that you find. I don't want to say that the point is always to like achieve orgasm, but like more times than not it is, right? So if your partner needs to bring something into the bedroom or wants to bring something into the bedroom to sort of help get there, then my feeling is like, absolutely.
Well, I like that.
Like, why would we not want that?
Well, I think what happens is people have, I don't know, it's like whether or not it's like religion or how you want to work out and diet or the sports team that you're, you know, supported for. People get these strict views on what they believe in. They get very strict on what is right and what is wrong, and life is black and white. And you go into this relationship feeling that sex is only this one thing, and then you don't communicate with your partner, and then you don't want to change the way you look at sex, or you don't want to change the way you look at intimacy. And then now with hyper-sexualized everything external going into your partner's head, I feel like that's when they look elsewhere because they're not satisfied. And also, I mean, you can look at it psychologically too. So when we experience pleasure, we achieve a new baseline of what pleasure is. And this is why that honeymoon period with like a partner, that's a real thing. So we find somebody new, they're new, exciting. We have sex with them, and now it's exciting for a period of time, but then all of a sudden sex with them becomes a new baseline. So just sex, quote unquote, is no longer as exciting as when we first met them in the first week, first month, whatever. So then we get bored, and then we look elsewhere, and then this is what breaks up relationships, and this is what hurts people. So I think that this is actually a really smart thing, because I don't know any relationship where it's just as exciting day one on year 30 and year 40. Like, let's be real. Like, this is a long ass period of time. Life is long.
Of course. And I mean, even if you take sex out of it for a second, like, listen, this is not news. Relationships are really hard. Yeah. And, you know, there's a woman who I love, Esther Perel or Esther Perel. I don't know if I'm ever saying the last name right, but one of the things that she preaches more than anything is this, like, relationships just have different places in their lives. And two people are just going to grow inevitably at different times and different places. And if those two people can't sort of like find ways to grow together and sort of continue to meet in the middle on things or meet at a new destination, like inevitably, probably that relationship is going to run its course. We just see that happen a lot in the sex types of things. But I look at that because it is important.
Yeah.
You know, a good, healthy sex life with your partner and with yourself is important to like overall well-being. So that's why, and you can get into that like in the medical terms of like the endorphins it releases, the stress that it brings down, like, and there's a million of those reasons that like you can find, right? That like real doctors have like studied.
Yeah.
But just in like the simplistic terms, like that's why I do say that like we're in the sexual health and wellness, because I think that like we're a product that we make helps people feel better. And it might be for a certain period of time. I mean, look at COVID, right? Like I joke, our company and our industry as a whole just skyrocketed during COVID.
No kidding. Everyone's stuck at home.
Okay. Yeah. But it's two people that are stuck at home, right? It's two people. That's the way I look at it. It's the person that's in the relationship that's stuck at home with the person that they're never stuck at home with for this long. And what are you going to do? You're just going to try to like spice things up. You're going to try out new products. You're going to bring sex toys in that you've never brought in before. You're just doing different shit because all of a sudden you're stuck with this person that like normally you go to work. Normally you're out of the house. You're with friends. You're with family. You're traveling.
Yeah, but life ignores you from
anymore.
a shitty relationship, sexual or otherwise. Life distracts you from all the stuff that you should be dealing with. COVID forces us to deal with
exactly
broken relationships.
Or you're the second person, which was the person that was alone. You weren't with a partner and you were missing out on dates and you're missing out on all this sort of stuff. And maybe you don't have a friends with benefits. Maybe you were very COVID safe or whatever. And guess what you're doing? You're online buying sex toys, more of what you own and shit you've never bought before in your entire life. Cause you're just like, dude, if I'm going out feeling good.
Yeah.
And when everybody got their government check in the mail, biggest day we've ever had on our website.
No kidding. This is what they go to.
Biggest week.
That's so interesting. I mean, it's because it's like, listen, you're human. This is like a human function to be sexual, and you can't just ignore it for periods of time.
From the dawn of time. Yeah. I mean, sex is survival.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, we're not here without it.
We
don't survive as a human race without it. So
where do you see this industry going? What do you see as new on the horizon, stuff that, maybe is now taboo, that people you think will adopt, be more mainstream about? Like what? Let's figure what we're gonna go have, like sex robots. Like where are we gonna go with this? Like,
yeah. On one hand, I hate where this industry is going.
Why?
Because I hate where every industry is going. I hate that we're becoming more sort of singular in our focus. And like, yeah, I see sex robots and I see less human interaction and I see more sort of like this like inward behavior. We're so fucking stuck on these and everything else. So like, I'm no saint here. Like our industry and my company is going to follow in certain directions that we know are products that might be necessary for like where we're kind of headed as like humans. Strap on my helmet.
Yeah.
I'm going to have my product. It's going to be connected to a machine that talks to my robot and, it's going to jerk me off and, like Demolition Man. Remember that movie? It's going to be like, I think there's that segment that doesn't exist today. And that's one segment that's going to be there tomorrow, or when I bring my kids in for the third generation, that they'll be doing that. How do
you know, you're one of the people leading the way. It's going to be a tough question because like you just said you have to make products to keep up with consumer demand, but how, as one of the leaders in the industry, do you make sure that we don't kill human connection? If there is a sex robot and there is someone living in their mother's basement, like they're never going to go out. They're never going to go on a date. They're never going to interact. Like this is going to be an issue, no?
Yeah, it is. I mean, but it's unavoidable. But to every yin is the yang, like I do feel like if it's either part of the pendulum swinging backwards, or if it's just the part of our kind of civilization that stays more on the side of craving human connection, like we'll still have our products that are meant for us to use together, for us to just use separately. I mean, there's a lot of products that we make right now. They're not going anywhere. Like they're not going anywhere. Like there's always going to be the 5, 6, 7 different types of vibrators that you kind of need for different reasons. There's always going to be your simple C rings or lubricants or lotions, like this type of stuff is not It's not going anywhere. You know, it's going to get better, new ingredients, better material, you know, and then new inventions, like maybe just different types of vibration, you know, different ways that vibration is translated to the body and to the body part.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned, like, you know, between like the butt stimulation, prostate stimulation, you have the main squeeze that has like the pressure grip. Like you start to see like small little things that improve the overall experience, right? Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You know, just a couple more just thoughts to sort of close this out. Just in, you know, your particular position, you're a second generation owner of this business. I'm very curious as to sort of bringing it back now to what you've built and what your dad had started. When you take over the reins of a business like this, like very bluntly, how do you not fuck it up? How do you not screw it up? How do you continue the legacy? Because I see so many people that jump into their father's or parents' footsteps and they don't run things right. And I'm just curious, as a business leader, how did you manage this turnover? Obviously, you're doing it successfully. It's been 20 plus years, but a lot of people, generational wealth does not stick around for long in most cases.
Yeah. I think, well, I'll start with, you know, my dad. Like, I think I have to give a lot of credit to him, because when I came in, I didn't come in on day one. Like, he made me work here every summer, literally from like 8th grade going into 9th grade of like high school.
No, okay.
And it wasn't because he wanted me to take over or because that was my destiny. It was like, you just got to have a fucking job. Like, he's blue collar, Midwestern person. And he was just like, you have to have a job. Like, you're not going to be, you know, just fucking running around all summer like a little shit. And I grew up way more privileged than he did, you know, so he was just like, you know, you can work for me or you can go to Baskin Robbins or whatever you want to do.
You're going to work somewhere.
I was like,
yeah.
And I was like, well, it would be stupid to not work for you, because I'll probably get away with more if I work for you, you know? But I worked here every summer. I worked in the shipping department. I worked in the production department. I worked in our lab. I worked in receiving. I worked in purchasing. So by the time I started here in 2004, I had been bred to basically do what I'm currently doing right now, which is, you know, I knew how the company operated. I sort of knew the ins and outs. I had ideas of like what I thought wasn't right, at least to me. You know, and I came in from college with way more ideas and probably too many ideas, you know, and for better or worse, I would say some there's definitely a little bit of both. Like, there were things that I just like wasn't allowed to do early on, like maybe some big things that I would have liked to have done that I was just kind of said like no to, you know, and maybe those could have been wild failures. I do also think, crediting him again, and this is something that I'll always take in if my kids ever end up here or whatnot, is like, you just do have to let people fail. You know, like, you've got to let them sometimes make their own decisions and kind of grow from that and like realize why it failed and like hopefully learn from these mistakes. And so I believe that I was given, you know, rope. Mm-hmm. To do that with. And it was like, you know, I say like never enough rope to like hang myself with, but like, you know, enough rope to be like, okay, maybe I'm just like a little rash here, or I didn't look at the big picture. And then like, I guess if I'll give myself some credit.
You can. You can. 20 years later, you can.
For me, like, you know, I feel like I worked hard here because like I was always very concerned and aware of sort of like Nepo baby shit. Yeah. And so I do feel like when you come into an organization that's your family's, like, it doesn't matter if you work 200 times harder than someone else. It's like that they're never going to see that. But for your own sort of self, it's like it breeds sort of like good tactics and good traits to sort of just like make sure that you're not kind of like freeloading. And also, like, I think that for me, it was really important that I just like, I've always wanted to be like a macro manager and not a micromanager. And so like I've put together like a really good team and I really trust in them. And like this company's too big for one or two people to sort of like do everything. And so, you know, again, it's kind of shifting some stuff away from me, but just like finding the right people and putting the right people in the places of power. I've gotten lucky with some of those people and they've just helped me tremendously, you know, continue the organization, you know, in the right vein.
That's probably the smartest, it's the smartest piece of advice. Like you're never going to figure out everything yourself. And yeah, there's some, you can shoot big, you can fail a little bit, but if you find the right people, then you let them do their thing. You don't micromanage. And if it's the right people, they'll run with it. But also it's like, if they're the wrong people, get rid of them quick, but still if it's the right people. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've run into that, you know, I mean, sure, I hired wrong people along the way and you're always going to do that. But identifying that and moving quickly is another thing that I would say is really, really, really important. Someone told me once, or maybe I read it somewhere, I don't know, but if you think it should be done eventually, it should be done now.
Oh, I like that quote. I've never heard that quote, but I like it a lot. I like that a lot.
There's a lot of times where I felt like I know I've got to do this, but I just can't do it. And it's like 10 out of 10 times, if you know it's got to be done eventually, just do it now.
Between working in the business as a young kid, going to school, did you find school was useful at all?
That's a good question. Textbook wise, no. But growth wise, yes. Growth wise, yes. I mean, I honestly can't say that there's anything I've brought to school here as a real like textbook example of something that I learned and then like completely applied here in like a real world.
It's interesting, isn't it? Like how much real business is that?
Like that was chapter 7 that helped me right here today, you know, like, but I think like overall, and just like the experience that it taught me. And I might be a little unique. Like I went to a small school here in Los Angeles. I had a small group of friends. We were together from a very, very, very young age. And I was very, very, very comfortable. And I definitely look back at it and think to myself that I was like a very big fish in a very small pond. And so for me, school was more than like textbooks. It was like I decided to go 3,000 miles away to a city I did not know anyone in and to a school that I did not know anyone in. So just like choosing to do something like that for me, those particular 4 years of my life were like invaluable.
I love that. And I think that your awareness of where school impacts like a business leader, I think that's important because I really, one message that I run into a lot is people over indexing sometimes on textbook education or even reading books or listening to podcasts, which is all great stuff. And I would say that even if I was going to stack rank educational sources, I'd put like podcasts and listening to business leaders like above school even then. But I would say that they still under index and under emphasize the importance of like just doing shit and doing the work and figuring it out and failing. Yeah. And I love that your dad, you said you could have worked anywhere, but your dad gave you the opportunity to work in the business. I think that is probably one of the smartest things you can do. Not everybody has that opportunity, but if you do have the opportunity to build something or work in something that you can eventually, as an entrepreneur, try and run or build something similar to the work that you were working in as a student, I think that's the best possible thing you could do to be successful. Because, I mean, you can take any MBA in the world, it doesn't prepare you for real life. And it definitely doesn't prepare you for being an entrepreneur, founder, CEO, C-suite executive, and all the shit you have to deal with.
I think there's certain things within business that you really do need to go to school for, and then there's like, if you're talking about sort of like you said, entrepreneurship or just sort of overall leadership.
Yeah.
It's real life experience.
What would be one lesson you would tell your 20-year-old self?
Slow down.
Slow down. Okay. Why is that?
Yeah, I think, like I said, there were just some times where I feel like when I was 20, I was rushing into things and needed to accomplish stuff really, really quickly. And if I didn't see things immediately, it was like, immediate gratification. So I think like slow down, just like build.
Yeah.
Things that I've done in the last couple of years here were things that I set into motion 8 years ago.
I love that. Smart. Last question. And you can answer in two ways. I'll tell you the question in a second, but I want you to answer in a business context and more on a personal level as well. So the question is, you've had an incredible career. At this point in your life, what does success mean to you? But think about like where you want the business to go, but also when you're running something this size, no investors, you could do whatever you want with it. Where do you take yourself personally?
So business-wise, what does success mean to me? So I feel like my industry's really on the cusp right now of a lot of change. And as that one generation is kind of, moving on, I feel like there's a lot of opportunity here within the industry for, different opportunities to sort of maybe like merge, acquire, sort of like roll up into sort of like bigger organizations. And I think we're like in like the infancy of like what other mainstream categories have done. So I feel like business wise for me, it's like I have a goal in mind that I've set for this company. It's a number goal, of like, that I would really like to hit within the next like 5 years.
Okay.
And it's that number. I'm not going to say it, but I would say, just to give you context, it's like triple what our current like revenue is.
Okay. Good. And you deploy the traditional playbook, the playbook that you've seen in other industry. Okay. Makes sense.
Yeah. And so I feel like that's, for me right now, that would be like, that's where I want to see the company in the next 5 years. Okay. Personally, honestly, man, I have 2 kids, 5 and 2. And, I'm at that level right now where it's like personal success is like happily providing for my family and just having like a happy, healthy family.